Welcome everyone to Restaurateurs Black History Month Cooking Workshop. Thank you guys so much for making the time tonight to join us. And tonight we have our professional chef, Chef Desiree Lewis, who has been in the culinary industry for 30 plus years and is also a private chef. And she makes really amazing food, you guys. Whether it's, meals or desserts, amazing. Chef, go ahead.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Black History Month. This is so important and such an important part of our history. So what we decided to do is teach you something that we're hoping would be a little bit simple. It's not the totally authentic way of doing it because you'd be in the kitchen for a few hours. And we know everyone has something to do. So when it comes to chicken, because chicken has salmonella, we should make sure that we don't leave it out too long. But if you put chicken on a board or you use a knife, do not use it for anything else. You need to use a new board or a new knife or a spoon because of what chicken has in it. I really should have used my tablet so I can show you, but when I'm handling chicken, and because I have nail polish on, I'm gonna use gloves. It's not that you can't use your hands or a spoon, but I think it's easier when you're marinating the chicken, or as Caribbean people say, seasoning it, we should use gloves. So I'm gonna just turn this down a little bit for you to see.
Yeah.
So I have my chef's knife, which my son gave to me. He's also in the industry. And I have like some lemon and some gloves here. So there's been a debate about should you wash your chicken or shouldn't you wash your chicken. I don't think there's any right answer. I'm going to wash it and I'm going to show you how you should wash it. You can wash it with vinegar, a little bit of salt, lemon or lime. So what we're going to do is I have my bowl of chicken here. If you can see, I have 4 chicken legs in there. I'm going to use a small piece of lemon. And all I'm going to do, and let me just put on my gloves first. And as I said, you're not obligated to use gloves. I use gloves because I have nail polish on. So you're just going to cool water, and I'm just gonna squeeze some lemon into the chicken, okay? So I've added some cool water, and what you do is can you see okay? So I've added
Yes,
cool
I
water.
can see. I hope everybody else can see.
Can everyone else see?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, everyone? Okay, so I've just added some cool water in here, and I dropped the lemon in, and I actually left the lemon in there. And all we're going to do is mix it around a little bit and then drain it out. So I've washed the chicken once already, but I wanted to show you guys the process. As I said, any kind of acid. So it could be vinegar, a touch of salt. The salt may add a little bit to the chicken, or lime, or anything like that. So I'm just gonna pour it out. So it's important that you get your chicken dry. So I have some paper towel here. And all you can do, if you have, and I don't want you guys to be wasting anything because I know you're on a budget, is just drying the chicken off. And the reason why you're drying the chicken off is you want the seasoning to adhere to the chicken. Now, when I'm cooking, I have an empty bowl, and I'll show it to you, and all my scraps go into that empty bowl, no matter what it is. I always have an empty bowl on my island or on my counter. So anything that I'm not using any waste. So this paper towel that I've dried the chicken off will actually go into that bowl, and it's just my waste. And the chicken's there, it's been dried off. So what I've done is I've prepared everything ahead of time. Maybe I can just show you my counter. Everything is out. So right now I have all my seasonings out. So we have the chicken here. You want me to turn down the camera again?
Down a little bit down. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So the seasoning that you got, you're not going to use all of it because I'm assuming you only have about 3 or 4 legs. You're going to use about half or quarter because some of that seasoning should be saved to flavor your rice. Okay, so we're just gonna sprinkle a little bit. I use ramekins.
Chef, can you maybe touch on just maybe the names of the seasonings that's in there that combine
Sure.
the mixture?
So in there, it's garlic, salt, onions, onion powder. We have allspice. We have paprika, a touch of flour, a touch of sugar, a touch of salt, some black pepper. And then I added a few extra that I had in my, I can show you my seasoning. Okay, guys, so I can show you what my seasoning spot looks like. That's all seasoning. So, and then I added some rice and some oxtail seasoning. What we're trying to get is this authentic taste. And as I said, this is the quicker version because normally, you know, you could have done it a little bit different. So I add in a little bit of seasoning only because while the jerk seasoning is already made, we want to heighten that taste. So if you don't have gloves, just use a spoon and you're just going to mix it around. Just to make sure everything is coated. Normally we would have something like browning, a little bit of soy sauce, so you're free to add that too. If you add soy sauce and it's full salt, maybe you can cut back on a little bit of salt because you don't want that to be all salty. And the skin is left on the chicken because the skin helps with flavor. But it's your option if you'd like to remove it. So if you look at the chicken and you think, it could use a little bit more, there's enough there where you guys could add a little bit more, but keep in mind, a lot of these spices come with salt. So I added a little bit more in. And because you don't want to get these like overly spiced like parts of the chicken, just try your best to combine it the best way you can. So now we have the chicken here, right? In here is the jerk seasoning. So there's jerk seasoning. I added a few extra things. There's something we call a green seasoning, and maybe we can do another session. And it's a mix of green onions, peppers, garlic, all kind of things. And I combined a touch of barbecue sauce and ketchup because mine, opposed to yours, is very, very spicy. So here it is. Okay, and what we're going to do is just pour it onto the chicken. It's up to you guys, but I would say 1 heaping tablespoon. But you're also looking for a particular color with the chicken. That's it seasoned or marinated, as they say in our industry. Okay. Are we good, guys? And normally you should let it marinate overnight. If you can't, then what you should consider doing is covering it with some saran wrap and leaving it in the fridge for a minimum of an hour. But we know a lot of times this is something that's done overnight. Okay, so your chicken is marinating. Now, the next thing you should consider doing is getting your rice started because we wanted the chicken to marinate, right? That's why I started with that. And what I'm going to do is bring one of my pots over just to show you how I do the rice and peas. So here, there's 1 cup of rice in this, okay? Now, the rule of thumb for rice is for every 1 cup of rice, there should be 2 cups of liquid. I go under 2 cups of liquid because I like my rice to be a little shelly where it's not mushy, right? But that's technically the rule of thumb people use. I would say about 1.5 cups, okay? So keep in mind, you're gonna add water to this rice, but remember you have coconut milk and coconut milk is considered a liquid, right? So I haven't washed this rice yet. Normally you should wash the rice 3 to 4 times. It depends on the kind of rice. This is just parboil, long grain rice. It's big in the food industry because anything we want to do with it, whether it be stir fry or something else, this rice is the one that doesn't break up and get mushy. So that's why I use this one. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the process of washing it if you don't already know. I'm going to put on a glove again. As I said, because I have nail polish on my hands, I never cook, even for my own family, if I have nail polish on without using gloves. So we've got a cup of rice in here. I'm just going to put this down for you to see. And the process of washing the rice is just putting your hands in and mixing it around. So you're kind of, you know, as you move it around, you're scrubbing it in between your hands indirectly. And if you notice, the water is a little cloudy, right? And it's because of how rice is grown. So you should be doing this at least 3 or 4 times until it becomes clear.
We have a vegan in the house.
Oh,
In the
okay.
chat here, and I think has tofu. So is it the same process like how you?
She should add
season the tofu?
oil. Yeah, she should add oil onto her tofu. They have some different things that they carry for vegans. Like my son, who's in the same industry as me, they have some totally different vegan options now. But if she has tofu, she should definitely add a little bit of oil, whether it be olive oil or canola, and add the seasonings on the same way.
Okay.
But if the tofu is cut into smaller pieces, it will quicker absorb the seasoning. And tofu is kind of like a clean slate kind of situation where tofu will absorb any flavor you add to it.
How long would she have to keep her tofu marinated? If it's already
Like, the difference with tofu is tofu cooks quicker and it cooks differently than proteins do, like chicken or what have you.
Yeah.
She can marinate it. She can marinate it overnight if she wants, or she can marinate it for an hour or 2. What I'm going to do is show you the next process in regards to the rice. So I have gone ahead and pre-prepared so I can show you guys what the plate would look like. But what should happen is I have a smaller pot here. So I'll just show you the back of it so you see it's smaller. And I'm gonna add, so you should make sure you rinse off the tops of any cans you open, always make sure you give it a quick rinse. When we come home, we go through a process of wiping down our groceries with disinfectant wipes or whatever you have, but before you open it, give it a quick rinse. So I have half of the can of peas. I've already opened the can because I already cooked, so you guys can see what it would look like. So this is half a can. And if you notice, there's a liquid in the peas. Some people rinse it off, some people don't, right? The problem is because normally when we make rice and peas, we love to see that there's a deeper color from the peas that kind of give the rice and peas that little kind of deep red tinge. Mm-hmm. Well, if you totally rinse it off, what you're going to end up with is just the rice, which will be totally white, and then the peas. So some people are open to it, some people are not. So I have my pot here. I'm just going to add that to my pot. We're only going to add 1 cup of rice to this that we already washed. So that's my pot, okay? To this pot, and I've already gone ahead and washed everything that I need. So to this pot now, you should be using, unless you guys want to cook for a whole week, I don't. I have the half a can of coconut milk here. So I used half of the can before because I've already made this today, and then I have the other half. So for me, I won't be adding any more liquid because there's still some liquid left over in the can, plus this, and you don't want mushy rice. So I'm gonna add this to my pot and I'll scan it so you see. Now you can rinse out the container with just a touch, but most of the time, this to me is enough liquid here. It's easier to have less liquid and be able to add than to have too much liquid and be able to draw out. You can't do that, right? Because the rice absorbs liquid. So in my pot now, I'm just gonna show you the pot so you see where we're at. So in there is the coconut milk and the red peas. Now, I think I had told you guys the seasoning that we still have here. Add a touch of that to the pot because you're flavoring. Coconut milk doesn't have that much of a taste beyond the coconut side of it, okay? Now, if necessary, you can add a touch of pepper and things like that. So that's my pot. Along with that, you guys may have gotten vegetable bouillon cube. Instead of using salt, it gives a really nice flavor. I add that to my pot. And you just crush it up a little bit with your hands. So all of this can be done before you add it onto the stove. So you can prepare it and then put it on the stove because these peas do not need to be cooked. Once it comes to a boil, we're gonna add our rice anyway. So I'm assuming you guys have butter. I'm just gonna show you sticks of butter. So you're just putting in just under a tablespoon of butter. And as I said, all of these can be added to the pot before you put the pot on the stove. It makes it so much easier. I know that you also got some green onions and some thyme, or the other word for them is scallion. So here's my thyme. And all of these items have been washed already. So I'm just gonna drop that in my pot. I'm gonna show you my pot once I'm finished. Now the green onions should be cut up. Some people choose to, and I'm just gonna try and turn you guys near my cutting board. I don't know if you can see, probably not. Let me try and turn you a little lower. Can you guys see my cutting board or not? Yeah? So you can just cut. It doesn't have to be too small or too big. This is just what you're adding for flavor. And I'll just drop a Scotch bonnet pepper in. It's not for heat, it's for flavor. Please don't do this if you think the pepper may break because it'll ruin your whole pot. So what I'm gonna do is show you guys, and I freeze mine, and mine are more for flavor because I'm not big into spice, but let me just show you. So this is what my pot looks like before I add the rice in. So we flavored the rice. We flavored everything in this pot. Some people have told me that when they have beans, they kind of feel it like repeating or they get like heartburn. The way you can do that is to add a touch of sugar.
Okay.
Okay, so if you feel gassy after you eat like peas or beans, just add a touch of sugar before.
Mm-hmm.
So I put a cover on my pot and then I put my pot on the stove. I would put it on medium high because you don't want it to boil over too quickly. Because it has the coconut milk in it, that will bring it to a quick boil and it will overboil, right? So you want to keep it at kind of like a rolling boil, but not full. So I have mine going now. Once it comes to a boil, everything, so you want to see it boil up so that it will combine everything and also so the butter will melt. My coleslaw, I just put it in one of my favorite bowls. It has sentimental value. With my coleslaw, I have another piece of lemon, not the same one I cleaned the chicken with, but it should have a little bit of acid to it. So I just squeeze a little bit of lemon on my coleslaw, and it's not necessary. Different people make coleslaw differently. And I use sea salt all the time, different types. So this one is a more finer sea salt than the ones I do if I'm doing meat or steak. So I add just a sprinkle of that and some black pepper. Guys, if you can buy your spices in bulk, more no frills, it'll be more economical for you. And I use a touch of black pepper. Now, there's two ways to make coleslaw, President's Choice version, and I will give all of this to Una and Alyssa, right? Or Hellman's mayo, or in a little bit of both. That's how I do mine. And you just squeeze it. I don't like it too creamy, but some people do. So, and the thing is with coleslaw, you need to give it some time for the cabbage and the carrots to absorb the dressing. Like initially when you mix it, it doesn't absorb it. So give it a little bit of time. And I'm just gonna put on a glove and show you guys again. And as I said, I don't like it with too much dressing. Some people like coleslaw, and I'm sure if any of you know, they like coleslaw with raisins. I don't have raisins, but I have clients that like raisins in their coleslaw. And that's optional, you don't have to do it. So in there it's salt, pepper, a squeeze of lemon, a touch of mayo, and a touch of the dressing. Okay, and you just mix it around. You can use mayo or you can use the President's Choice Creamy Coleslaw. It's $1.99. And if you make potato salad, you can use it in that too, because it's kind of like a mayo base. The thing is, it's cabbage and carrots. So it actually will last in your fridge for over a week.
Okay.
Or two. And that same coleslaw, it's not really coleslaw until you add the dressing. You can actually use that in a stir fry.
Oh, okay. So I just have to put some in the bowl and then put the mayo on it and mix it?
Just enough for you.
And
Okay, and if you want, you add a little bit of salt and pepper, or you can also add raisins. I know a lot of places you go, you'll see raisins. So I hear my pot boiling up. And is everyone else's pot boiling up yet or no?
No.
Okay. So
I am
I'll turn
approaching
mine
the
down
boil.
away. Huh?
They're quite quiet in the chat. They're not speaking up.
Well,
You
they're
okay,
probably
Maya?
focused on, they're probably focused on making sure they get everything together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely just trying to like listen and like, okay, maybe I'm a step or
Okay.
two behind, but I'm getting there. My pot is
No, it's
approaching a boil.
okay. It's okay. So I turned mine down, waiting for you guys, which is fine. Oh, so in the coleslaw, I added lemon juice, a touch of salt and pepper, and I added mayo and coleslaw dressing.
Okay.
If you don't like too sweet, you can do the mayo. If you're okay, because the coleslaw dressing has a little bit of sweetness to it.
Okay.
I just mixed it around. And if you prefer sweet, you can add raisins, which is optional. A lot of times you go to these Caribbean places, you'll see raisins in it. But some people don't like the sweet and savory.
I also had a question about the Scotch bonnet pepper while we're waiting.
Sure.
So I understand, like, of course, if we were to break, it would ruin the meal, primarily because of the seeds inside. And I know this is probably like a more like advanced technique, but what if you were to cut it in half, de-seed it safely, and just like say put half of it in there? Like, would that still be really, really hot for people?
It would still be hot, and it's hot based on also the colors of the peppers. So even though you remove the seeds, there's certain peppers, and let me grab some that I'll show you because it's a great question. So there's certain peppers that have flavor. So this is called what we call pimento peppers. So they don't have a lot of spice, but they have a lot of flavor. So if you wanted more of the flavor, you can drop it in even with the seeds. It has such a small kick, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Scotch bonnet peppers, even without the seeds, are still quite hot. So if you like spice, go for it. If you don't like spice, maybe you could cut even a quarter. And when you're cutting it, make sure you use gloves, because you know, if you're aware, you wash your hands 100 times, you rub your eyes or any other part of your body, you're gonna be burnt, right? So even without the seeds, it still has, it's very hot. But if you like it, then you can cut a small piece and drop it in, but make sure it doesn't have the seeds in it. I'm gonna take my pot and bring it back to the island and show you guys the other process, right? So at this part, you guys should either have, I use a fork when it's a smaller pot, because they always say when you use a fork, it stops the rice from sticking together. But you can also use a teaspoon and taste that water or taste that liquid. The reason why you're tasting it for salt, you're tasting it for seasoning. So once it boils up, guys, just take a little teaspoon. Of course, know that that liquid is hot, so kind of blow on it and just taste it, because you know what kind of taste you'll like. Does that make sense? Because this is where you can tell, do I need another bouillon cube? Do I need something else? So now is where you guys need to taste your pot and make sure that liquid is what you want it to be. Okay, so I'm gonna bring my pot off of the stove just to show you guys. Okay, so I'm gonna turn the camera down just so you can see, okay? So let me see if you guys can see it. Can you guys see my pot?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it? So that's my pot. That's everything that we added in. I took the Scotch bonnet pepper out already because I didn't want it to break. So that's all the seasoning, butter, beans, and coconut milk. And technically what you should be doing is adding the rice to the pot while the liquid is boiling. Right? So I'm just showing you my pot, but you should be adding the rice while the liquid is already boiling. Now it's gonna continue to boil. And as you guys add your rice, all these seasonings are in there, right? Stir it. Because the rice will clump up a little bit, so just stir it. And you're gonna see it boil up again shortly. Because the rice is at a different temperature than the liquid in the pot, so it will take a few minutes to come together again. And you can keep it on high until it starts to boil up again. You're gonna cover it shortly. It's just, we're waiting for it to boil up again because we're gonna stir it. Then we're gonna cover it and turn it on maybe, well, mine has a 2, so you're gonna turn it to minimum, right? Some people, old school style, or even in the kitchen that I work in, they would add a little bit of foil and it will help it cook quicker. So in between the pot, right? So that it cooks with the steam. So as we see it here, once it gets like this, so it doesn't burn, guys, turn it down to minimum and cover it. So you guys have your chicken marinating, your rice on the stove. So technically what you do by now is you turn your oven to 375. If you have parchment paper or foil, you'd line if you have a glass baking dish, you don't need to line it. But if you have a baking pan or anything like that, line it with either foil or parchment paper. Do all of you know what parchment paper is? I prefer parchment paper. You do? Okay. And you're gonna turn your oven, perfect. You don't have to line it.
Okay, thank you.
But what you do is add just a light film of oil. Oil or something. Either way, if you have foil, just put a little bit on the bottom with the dull side up. So you're preheating the oven to 375 and use the middle rack. So there's notches, so count 3 down and put it in the middle. So here's your parchment paper, right? You want it to lay flat. Okay. So what you do is you just take it and you crumple it up like this. I'm gonna get my baking pan, one moment. So just a cookie tray or anything, guys, and you crumple the parchment paper up just like this. And then when you pull it out and you put it on your baking pan or your cookie tray, it actually lays flat. Okay. You know, because most of the time people slide and all that. Yes. So you just crumple it up and then it lays flat.
What if you don't have parchment paper or tin foil?
So if you don't, you add just like a little bit of oil or, and I know these are not typical stuff, guys, that you would have. I tend to have so much stuff that my kids so there's a little bit of this cooking spray. If you don't have that, a little bit of oil, and just watch your chicken. Because then the reason why we use parchment paper or oil is to prevent it from sticking. So everybody just take a look at your rice with your fork. You're gonna just give it a quick stir again. It's on minimum and you're just gonna give it a quick stir again. Just always make sure you don't have to hover over it, but watch your pots. And normally, guys, this is something we would do overnight. So, you know, the flavors obviously are absorbed differently when you have them overnight. But this will still be good for you guys to eat. And it only takes 45 to 50 minutes. We know the chicken is cooked when the juices run clear, right? So if you want, you can give yourself an hour, but those size drumsticks cook in about 50 minutes. But giving it an hour won't affect anything. I just wanted to make sure they weren't really, really skinny or small because then they dry out.
Quick question about how to lay the chicken on here. I'm wondering if it matters. Could I do skin side up or down?
Well, the chicken has skin all around, right? So what I
Well,
do,
yeah, but like some parts of it like have more skin, if that makes sense.
So I normally do the skin side up. And what I do is I alternate. So like, do you understand? So the thick part of the leg down, and then the next one beside it, the thin part up and back and forth. Now, the biggest pieces, if you have like a variance of pieces in size, put those on the outer edges or the sides. Because yeah. Does that make sense? So if you have a few that are big and a few that are like smaller, put the smaller ones in the middle and the bigger pieces on the ends.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So guys, keep checking your rice. And when the oven goes off, pop your chicken in. And then what we'll do is we'll go to what we're going to do with your leftover chicken, okay? But I want you guys to get your chicken in. And if the stove, or you guys all have your phones, can you set a timer? And you're gonna set a timer for the first 30 minutes, right? And then because the heat in the oven, when it's closer to the door, it may leak out. Like it kind of escapes unless you have a convection oven. So you're gonna set it for the first 30 minutes. And then what you're going to do, make sure you don't get burnt. So using a towel, not wet, or an oven mitt, you're gonna spin it for the last 25 minutes. So you're gonna take it out and spin it so there's even cooking on both sides.
Yeah, I had a question. Okay, so for the coleslaw, would it be okay if I use like apple cider vinegar instead?
Perfect. I'm glad. You can use that with a touch of sugar and honey. So you want more of a vinaigrette, correct?
Yeah.
Yep, you can use apple cider vinegar. You need to balance off the acid with sweet because you know apple cider vinegar can be overwhelming. Absolutely, use some honey or sugar, whisk it together, and sure.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome. What happens when you use too much water?
Maya loves rice cookers.
So there's different ways. You could put it on a dish and try and dry it out in the oven, right? Okay, so when you use too much water, then of course the rices absorb all this liquid. So what you do is you take it out of the pot as quickly as possible and you spread it out in a thin layer, whether it be on a plate or on a cookie sheet or whatever it is. And you could pop it in the oven. I know it's still cooking, but the oven dries things out. Or if it's really too mushy, guys, you end up having to, redo the pot again, but make sure it's spread out.
Risotto.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's a different kind of rice anyways, which is a borio rice, right?
Yeah.
So make sure you just spread it out as quickly as possible and cool it down as quickly as possible. So guys, I'm just gonna show you my rice. And what you're going to do, so I like it like this, kind of grainy. You guys can also take out the thyme, and that's why we kind of leave it like that. Now, I don't expect you guys to put your hand in the pot. I don't have a lot of feeling in my fingertips. It comes from being in the industry and touching stuff, but I like my rice like that. Okay, so guys, we have a wrap here. Mine is the President's Choice whole grain, whole wheat tortillas, but whatever you guys are comfortable with using. So I have a peach chutney. I'll just show that to you. So I'm gonna spread a little bit of the peach chutney, and I'll turn the camera down in 1 minute, on my tortilla wrap, okay? And if you guys want, I'll lift it up. No one's gonna eat it anyway, so. I spread the chutney on the tortilla wrap, right? I'm gonna put on some gloves. So here I have one of the chicken legs that I pulled off of my jerk chicken dinner. So you want something a little bit different and you don't, you have some leftover chicken. So what I did is, and I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing. With gloves, I'm just pulling it off of the bone. You guys can use a fork or a knife, but it's easier to do it this way. And in the industry, when we're trying to do stuff like that, this is what we do. So, and you just pull it apart in little pieces, and I'm gonna show you guys soon. And you're gonna get some coleslaw. So that is just a whole wheat wrap. Any of them will do. And then guys, what you're going to do, I'm just gonna kind of move it. You're just gonna turn it into a wrap where you're just gonna roll it, and I'll show you.
That looks so yummy.
Beautiful.
And that's you guys using your leftover chicken that's already cooked. The pita wraps I think are about $2.79, and you can freeze them. So you just pull one out, use a damp paper towel and heat it up so it remains soft, and that's your wrap.
Yeah.
And it has, as I said, in the summer, you could get the mango chutney, but they also have like a corn relish, anything that's contrasting with, and then you add a little bit of your coleslaw. You're going to look for items. I know everywhere is expensive, but No Frills is probably your best bet. And you guys use those gift cards, go to No Frills. And some of the No Frills have fresh meat counters. So you can go along the front and just tell them you just need 6 legs, and they'll give you 6 legs. Right? So the fresh meat counters would work the best for you guys. So you're not buying prepackaged stuff and having to pay the higher cost of the packaging, because packaging costs, right? So maybe you go and you say to them, I need 4 legs, right? Or you get, a pound of ground beef or pork or chicken. So that way, and then plan your menus. If you plan your menus, then you won't go in and buy things you don't need. So what I would suggest, guys, is make a list, right? And stick to your list. But before you go shopping, guys, always go through your closets or your cupboards and see what you have in your pantry. Because if you see what you have, you'd be shocked. I do this all the time. I don't check, I just go. Especially when my clients ask me for something, I just go. And that's why I have so many seasonings and stuff there. But it's also a chef thing, but go through your pantry, go through your cupboards and just double check what's there. So in the food industry, we have this thing called FIFO, which is first in, first out. So when you shop, anything that's newer, put it to the back and bring the old stuff forward, because they have expiry dates, and use the old stuff so you're not, wasting money and food. You buy a pack of the wraps. Guys, know that you can freeze them and use them. Just make sure they're sealed properly, because if it's only you or 2 of you, then you don't want to have them all out and they go bad. So you go back in and you just pull out a wrap or 2 and things such as that. And guys, while everyone would like to eat out, it's important to learn to cook, because it saves you money, but then it's also that you can utilize the food after for something else. You know what I mean? Like, this is so important. I have my middle son that's a chef, but does he use Uber? Absolutely. I tend to cook every day because I have some food intolerances that I've developed as I've gotten older, but it's important that you can do this for yourself, because it also, you guys are on a budget and it helps. If this is something you're interested in getting into, you can send me an email and I can give you, the positive parts, the parts that are a little bit difficult, but I love what I do. You should always do something that you're passionate about. So if you have questions for me, my email should be there, and I'll do my best to get back to you guys. Is an art, but baking is a science. So if the weather is not great outside, it affects their flour and different things, right? If it's humid outside, that's why sometimes they'll tell you to weigh your flour rather than just measure it, because